How can a baby marked for death become the man who parts a sea? Born a slave, raised as a prince in Pharaoh's palace, forced into exile in the desert, then called by God through a burning bush. What happened next would shake Egypt, humble a king, and change history forever. This is the extraordinary story of Moses. Fear ruled Egypt. Pharaoh feared the Hebrews growing strong. A cruel command spread. Every Hebrew baby boy must die. Fear filled every home. Hope seemed ready to disappear. But one child was different. Destiny breathed upon him. His name was Moses. And history would never stay the same. With trembling hands, his mother prepared a final hope. She placed her baby inside, trusting God beyond fear. The river carried him between danger and destiny. His sister watched quietly, praying he would survive. The current moved gently, carrying Moses toward his future. Far away, royalty approached the riverbanks of Egypt. A hidden basket appeared, floating softly among the reeds. Her heart softened instantly. Compassion defeated fear that day. Courage rose in Miriam, and destiny quietly unfolded further. Miriam offered help, hiding wisdom beneath a child's voice. Love held him tightly, while destiny waited patiently ahead. The princess trusted her, never knowing the deeper truth. Even as a child, heaven's purpose surrounded Moses completely. Moses grew within Egypt, raised among kings and power. He learned wisdom, language, leadership, and the ways of royalty. Yet deep inside, he felt different from those around him. Compassion awakened slowly, and destiny began calling his name. Each cry he heard pulled Moses closer toward painful truth. Then anger exploded as cruelty struck before Moses' eyes. In one moment, everything changed forever for Moses that day. Moses fled Egypt, leaving behind everything he had ever known. Behind him came danger, racing fast across the burning sands. The prince of Egypt had become a lonely fugitive overnight. Yet beyond the darkness, destiny still waited for Moses ahead. Far from Egypt, Moses arrived in the land of Midian. Trouble appeared quickly. As cruel shepherds drove the women away, once again, Moses stepped forward to defend the helpless. Strength returned suddenly, and the shepherds fled in fear. Kindness opened new doors, and Moses' journey quietly changed. In Midian, Moses finally found rest from endless fear. Strangers became family, and loneliness slowly disappeared from him. Days became peaceful, far away from Egypt's painful shadows. Years passed quietly, shaping Moses into a wiser man. But destiny was calling from a mountain not far away. A strange fire appeared, burning brightly without consuming the bush. Then a voice called out, speaking directly into Moses' soul. The desert became holy ground, and destiny finally awakened. From the fire came a voice, powerful beyond human understanding. God called his name, and Moses trembled before the holy voice. Fear and wonder collided as Moses listened to the divine call. The God of his fathers was speaking directly to Moses now. Then came the mission, greater than anything Moses imagined. God had seen the suffering and heard every cry from Egypt. But Moses felt afraid, doubting himself and his own ability. Why would Pharaoh listen? And why would they follow me? But heaven answered firmly, I will be with you always. God gave Moses signs, powerful enough to shake kingdoms apart. The staff became a serpent, alive before Moses' fearful eyes. The serpent became wood again, proof of heaven's mighty power. Confidence slowly rose as Moses accepted the impossible calling. After many years, Moses finally journeyed back toward Egypt. He left behind peace to face the empire he once escaped. Each step forward carried fear, but faith pushed him onward. This time he returned, not as prince, but as God's messenger. Then came Aaron, the brother Moses had long missed deeply. Moses shared the calling, and Aaron listened with growing amazement. The signs revealed truth, convincing Aaron that God truly had spoken. At last they returned, carrying hope into suffering hearts again. Whispers spread quickly. The deliverer had finally come back. Signs of power appeared, and faith awakened among the people. For the first time in years, hope felt stronger than fear. Moses accepted his calling, ready to confront Pharaoh himself. Two brothers walked boldly into the heart of Egypt's power. Pharaoh watched proudly, believing no force could challenge his throne. Then Moses declared, "Let God's people finally go free."
For justice.
Pride filled Pharaoh's heart, and he rejected the warning instantly. Even miracles appeared, yet Pharaoh's heart refused to surrender. Egypt's magicians copied signs, trying to challenge heaven's power, but truth consumed deception. Before Pharaoh's very eyes that day. Still Pharaoh resisted, refusing to bow before the God of Israel. The palace remained stubborn, while suffering continued across Egypt. Pride blinded Pharaoh deeply, while judgment quietly drew nearer. Pharaoh answered cruelly, making the Hebrews suffer even more. The burden grew heavier, crushing bodies and weakening weary hearts. Many blamed Moses, believing hope had only brought more pain. Doubt surrounded Moses, and fear returned to his troubled heart. But in the darkness, Moses cried out once more to God. Then heaven moved, and Egypt faced the beginning of judgment. Moses obeyed fully, and the river itself began transforming. The waters turned to blood, and fear spread across all Egypt. Life disappeared suddenly, as the mighty Nile became corrupted completely. Yet Pharaoh refused again, and greater wonders were still coming. But Pharaoh stayed stubborn, and a second plague soon arrived.
It's a curse!
Frogs covered Egypt completely, filling homes, streets, and palaces alike. Even Pharaoh's palace could not escape the plague spreading everywhere. Fear spread rapidly as Egypt struggled beneath heaven's warning signs. Moses remained faithful, while Pharaoh's heart continued growing harder. Again God commanded, and Moses obeyed without hesitation or fear. The dust itself transformed, becoming swarms covering all of Egypt. No place remained peaceful, as torment filled the land completely. Even Pharaoh's magicians admitted this power came from God himself. Still, Pharaoh resisted stubbornly, refusing to humble himself before heaven. Then darkness buzzed loudly as swarms filled Egypt with terror again. The air itself turned dreadful, and fear spread through every corner. But God protected his people, separating them from Egypt's suffering completely. Pharaoh heard the warnings, yet pride chained his heart tighter still. Moses stood unshaken, carrying heaven's warnings directly into Egypt's throne. The next plague struck deeply, destroying Egypt's wealth and livestock rapidly. Across the land came sorrow, as animals perished beneath the plague. Yet among the Hebrews, not a single animal was harmed. The truth stood clearly, but Pharaoh refused to surrender his pride. Each warning grew stronger, while judgment continued moving across Egypt. The heavens darkened suddenly, and Egypt trembled beneath gathering storms. Moses lifted his staff, and heaven answered with terrifying power. Fire and hail descended together, destroying everything beneath the violent storm. For the first time, fear finally entered Pharaoh's hardened heart. Another warning came swiftly, yet Pharaoh still refused to surrender. Moses warned again, but pride continued ruling Pharaoh's stubborn heart. Locusts devoured everything, leaving Egypt empty and filled with despair. The land became barren as hunger spread throughout the mighty kingdom. Still, Pharaoh hesitated, trapped between fear and endless arrogance. Then darkness descended, swallowing Egypt beneath terrifying silence completely. No one could move safely. Fear covered the land like shadow. But among God's people, light still shined brightly through the darkness. Pharaoh's anger exploded, but his heart still refused to change. Even in darkness, Moses carried heaven's light before the people. One final warning remained, greater than all the plagues before it. The palace stood silent, waiting for heaven's final judgment to arrive. Moses warned Pharaoh clearly, but pride still ruled Egypt's throne. In fury, Pharaoh shouted, ordering Moses never to return again. The final moment approached, and Egypt stood dangerously close to disaster. That sacred night, Hebrew families prepared exactly as God commanded. Each doorway carried a sign, marking homes protected by faith. Silence filled the night, while every family waited with trembling hearts. Then judgment passed quietly, moving across Egypt beneath the darkness. Silence filled the night, while every family waited with trembling hearts. By morning, Egypt wept, as grief spread through every household. Even Pharaoh finally broke, beneath unbearable sorrow and devastating loss. A desperate command came quickly, ordering the Hebrews to leave Egypt. At last, freedom arrived, after generations trapped beneath cruel slavery. With hope before them, God's people finally walked toward freedom. Freedom had finally come, and thousands followed Moses into hope. After years of suffering, joy filled hearts across the desert. Moses walked ahead boldly, trusting God to guide every step. Then heaven revealed guidance. Through a pillar of cloud above, God journeyed with them, leading his people toward freedom. But Pharaoh's pride returned, and anger replaced sorrow quickly. His advisors questioned him. Why let the slaves escape? Suddenly, Pharaoh decided Egypt would chase them down again. The army assembled quickly, ready to reclaim the escaping Hebrews. War thundered behind them, racing toward the people of Israel. The people rested briefly beside the waters of the sea. Then someone saw danger rising across the desert horizon. The army was coming, and fear swept through the camp. Hope turned to panic as people feared destruction ahead. Yet Moses remained steady, trusting the God who rescued them. Before them stood water. Behind them thundered Egypt's army. Many believed all hope had vanished in a single moment. The enemy moved closer, with every passing second of fear. But Moses looked ahead, searching beyond what eyes could see. Then God intervened, standing between his people and danger. Then came the moment that would change history forever. A mighty wind arose, driven by the power of God. Moses obeyed boldly, placing faith above every fear around him. Suddenly the waters moved, creating the impossible before them. The sea opened wide, and heaven made a path forward. Before their eyes stood wonder, a path through the mighty sea. Moses stepped forward first, trusting the path God had created. Fear slowly became faith as the people followed their leader. The sea stood still, held back by heaven's mighty hand. An entire nation crossed where no road had existed before. The Egyptians arrived quickly and saw the miracle before them. Still, Pharaoh pressed onward, blinded by pride and vengeance. The army rushed forward, chasing freedom into the impossible. But Moses trusted fully, knowing God was still in control. Fear returned briefly as danger followed close behind. Suddenly the pursuit changed, and trouble struck Egypt's army. Confusion spread rapidly as their chariots failed beneath them. Fear filled their hearts as they sensed heaven's power. The hunters became trapped inside the miracle they pursued. At last they arrived, safe upon the opposite shore. Then God instructed Moses to stretch out his staff again. The waters moved suddenly, returning to their rightful place. The sea closed completely, ending Pharaoh's pursuit forever. Freedom was finally secure, and a new future began. The people stood amazed, witnessing what God had done. Fear disappeared completely, replaced by joy and gratitude. He remembered the journey, from basket to miracle-filled destiny. They praised the Lord, who turned impossibility into deliverance. Yet the celebration had only begun. Songs were about to rise. Then Moses lifted his voice, and a song filled the shore. Every heart remembered how God had shattered impossible chains. The Lord is my strength, and he has become salvation. Among the celebrations stood Miriam, searching through the joyful crowd. Then she saw him, the baby she once watched from reeds. Years vanished instantly, as brother and sister met again. Joy overflowed freely, as memories returned from long ago. Even freedom felt sweeter when families stood together again. Then another face appeared, one Moses never expected to see. The woman who saved him stood before him once more. Years of separation disappeared in a single, unforgettable moment. The baby from the basket had returned as a deliverer. Their hearts overflowed with gratitude for God's faithful protection. Miriam could not stay silent. Joy demanded a celebration. Music filled the shoreline, and hearts danced with freedom. She sang of victory and of the God who saves. The shore became alive with gratitude, music, and praise. After years of struggle, joy finally filled every heart. The sea was calm again, but history had changed forever. A new journey awaited beyond the shore of miracles. The deliverer moved forward, guided by God's faithful presence. What began in a basket became freedom for an entire nation. When God leads the way, even seas must open before you. Chains were gone forever. Freedom now belonged to God's people. The children knew only joy, where fear once ruled their lives. Old hearts witnessed miracles they once thought impossible. The leader watched quietly, giving glory back to God. A nation stood united, rescued by heaven's mighty hand. Moses remembered another river, many years before this day. A basket once carried him toward God's hidden purpose. A sister watched faithfully, trusting God through uncertainty. Compassion changed history through one unexpected decision. God had guided every step from river to redemption. Now the journey made sense. God's plan had never failed. Every trial prepared him for the mission God designed. The frightened shepherd became a leader of a nation. God transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary stories. The miracle proved forever. Nothing is impossible for God. Voices rose together, praising the God who rescued them. Songs replaced sorrow, and gratitude filled every heart. The future now belonged to a free people. The shore echoed loudly with praise and thanksgiving. The sea was behind them, but the journey continued.
New challenges waited ahead, beyond the edge of sight.
But God still guided them every step of the way.
The people moved forward, with faith stronger than fear.
A new chapter opened for God's chosen people.
His mother watched proudly, amazed by God's faithfulness.
She remembered the basket, floating among river reeds. That tiny child had become a mighty deliverer. God had preserved him through every danger and trial. Faith and love endured through every passing year. Miriam's heart overflowed with gratitude and celebration. The songs continued rising across the morning shore. Years of waiting ended in victory beyond imagination. Freedom inspired praise throughout the gathered nation. The God who rescued them would lead them onward. The story was shared from parents to children. They listened in awe to tales of God's power. Faith would be remembered for generations to come. The miracle became history, yet its message lived on. God's faithfulness would never be forgotten. One truth stood forever. God delivers those who trust him. Their freedom proved clearly God's promises never fail. The sea itself obeyed the voice of its creator. The people learned deeply, faith is stronger than fear. All glory belonged to the Lord who rescued them. The journey continued onward. Beneath heaven's faithful guidance, God remained with them, visible in cloud and fire. The next generation marched toward a future filled with hope. The shepherd turned leader guided a nation toward destiny. Many wonders awaited beyond the desert horizon.